I never played the original Resident Evil 2, so I have no idea how it holds up. But the remake was rare in that it was a horror game that not only scared me, but pushed me to want to see what happened next. The story itself is an over-the-top camp mess that has only the veneer of what could be called voice acting, yet it's endearing, tense, and consistently creates an atmosphere that is both terrifying and engaging in a way I've never played before. I've never played a Resident Evil game. I've heard a lot of things about them, seen the video game donkey videos about them, and all about that crank.
You need the crank? I don't want the crank!
Yet, when it comes to playing them myself, I was never interested. I saw the film at too young of an age, and seeing those guys get chopped up by the laser spooked me enough to still think about it to this day. So when I got the Humble Bundle for the entire franchise, I was skeptical but willing to try at least one, and was told to start with the Resident Evil 2 remake. And damn, it looks beautiful. I play a lot of games, and ones that are supposed to push the boundaries of how good a game can look, but I've never been as impressed with a photorealistic style like I have been with this. That burger right at the start, why did it look so tasty? The characters themselves as well look incredible. Leon, Claire, Ada, even Mr. X and the fucking creepy blob G-Virus guy are more detailed and expressive than every Ubisoft game from the past decade. The environments are incredibly detailed as well. The police station is by far the best looking, but even the later game places like the sewers and Nest all have their unique style without feeling like entirely different games that add to the interconnected nature of it. The story itself is simple, incredibly so. I played Claire first, and her goal to start with is to simply just find her brother, who is like off chilling somewhere, if you believe the in-game note you can find. Eventually, she is driven to help a young girl named Sherry through a series of events I can only call ridiculous.
Words ain't gonna cut it with this.
Because it only makes sense for the end goal of Claire being involved in the game. Leon, on the other hand, has a much better tag into the story, it being his first day as part of the RPD, before then deciding to follow Ada around like a lost puppy. Having played both the game and the second run, I do think that it suffers too much from repetition. Playing Leon in the second run and having Mr. X chase you earlier on makes the early game much more tense, mixed in with the harder zombies and less resources. It does make you feel like you're having a worse time compared to the first run, because you've already been through these areas. On the other hand, you're doing the exact same puzzles, in the exact same order, with only a few minor differences, and that really hurts the game. For me, it didn't ruin it, because the tension of constantly running out of ammo, changing tactics, and dodging Mr. X enhanced the experience. But as I got into the sewers, an area which made sense for Claire, but less so for Leon, it did start to feel like they'd cut parts to share assets between the different runs. Saying that, the actual gameplay itself is brilliant. Shooting the zombies can be frustrating if you're looking for a headshot kill, but every now and then the zombies' heads will just right open in a gory mess and permanently die. It happens few and far between unless you have high caliber ammo, but it's really satisfying when it does. In my second run, I found you could shoot the legs out of a zombie, or that a single shot can stun one so that you can run around. Whilst there's still a threat, de-legging a zombie means it can't ambush you through doors, which is really useful. And it also means sneaking past lickers becomes possible because you're not trying to outrun several lunging zombies. The point-and-click style of the puzzles makes them incredibly satisfying as well. Looking through documents to find the safe code, or finding a roll of film and developing it for a locker code, tickles that part of my brain that loves to solve puzzles. And there was only one time that I needed to look something up. The rest was all simple, yet complicated enough for me to do it on my own. I wrote down a lot of the codes as well, knowing that there was a second run, so I could easily get all of the codes and information without having to find them naturally. It also meant I could solve puzzles that took me a long time in the first run instantly to get that little boost to this run that was much needed due to the power increase of the enemies. Now, let's talk about Mr. X. That motherfucker is terrifying.
Jesus, stay back!
I have no idea how the game does it, but he seems to always be in the worst spot for you every time. In Claire's run, he was a fairly minor nuisance, and only in the first half before he totally disappeared. In Leon's run though, he was a constant menace. He shows up earlier and is constantly chasing and tracking you throughout the map. Sequences like putting the helicopter fire become even more tense when new interactions like the ladder breaking apart happen that force you to confront him without that barrier to escape like before. The sound design on him is brilliant as well. The stomping of his footsteps throughout the police station is a constant reminder that you're not alone, and not just not alone, but hunted. It muffles when he's in a different room and echoes when he's a floor above you, but if he's close, then you'll know. It's also amazing how he appears seemingly out of nowhere, like a ninja during key story moments. Having to dodge his bulking form in a tight corridor is truly terrifying, and it gives him such a menacing gravitas. The story itself of the G-Virus and a zombie-infected Raccoon City is fine. I liked the boss fights, but thought they were just serviceable and nothing special compared to the flashy boss fights of the modern day. I find it hilarious how Birkin kept coming back. You fight him in the steam room, and then again with the stupid crane. And then his best fight in the third stage. That one was the flashiest, and in my opinion, the best fought one. And I thought it was done until the motherfucker came back again in the really cool train fight where you literally like shoot him apart with the minigun.
Why can't you just die?
Leon's final fight with Mr. X was also amazing, and the one I died on the most by a long shot. It wasn't even close to that guy kicking my asses. He was prone to do throughout the entire fight. Once I figured out how to do it though, it was easy, and really cool to shoot him and just turn onto legs. Out of all the boss fights, his was the one I enjoyed the most because it was incredibly cathartic after 2 run-throughs of the game to finally slay that vicious monster.
Where did this thing come from?
Then, watching Leon jump onto the train, I was ready to see the final, proper, true ending, only to have that motherfucker come back again. Honestly, it was hilarious how after being reduced to a pile of barbecue ribs, Birkin comes back again for one final fight that was mostly for show to have Claire and Leon work together properly for the first time in the entire game. It was some nice catharsis, using up all my ammo and dumping it into the blob monster that was Birkin. Of course, when the game ends, it does so in the most dramatic and ridiculous way it can, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a level of camp and seriousness that you don't see in a lot of modern media, both films and games, that RE2 perfectly encapsulates. It's not a perfect game. There are some issues with how it handles, and I got stuck on things like walls when I was trying to run away because the controls were a little janky. That's also not mentioning how the zombies seem to be able to grab me from outside their animation, or how the lickers seem to be both too powerful and totally useless if you know how to move past them correctly. They're all minor issues because aside from the story itself, the game has so many challenges and bonus modes, including things like the fourth survivor, where you have to run across the entire map with a limited inventory, and the tofu survivor, where it's the exact same thing, but you're a big chunk of tofu that makes anime noises instead of dialogue lines. It's amazing.
Man, I thought you were all wiped out. I've been trying to...
Before this, I'd never played a Resident Evil game, and the franchise was this decades-long monolith that I'd never thought of touching because of its intimidating lore, intimidating monsters, and, frankly, overwhelming atmosphere. After this, though, I can't wait to see how disappointed I'm going to be with the franchise's past and future installments.
Next up on this boring Wednesday is a song to get your blood pumping.